Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video, some follow-up from a prior video where I swapped out the trigger group on my Ruger 1022. So taking out the original factory trigger group and replacing it here with the BX trigger. At this point, I've had a few range sessions and I've started to develop some thoughts. So the question becomes, how worth it was it to swap this out? Well, to get into it, first and foremost, it's an easy job. So it's not like you're getting into something that's extremely difficult. It's not going to take a huge amount of mechanical ability. And if you're into firearms, in my opinion, you should have some basic, mechanical and technical skills in the first place to maintain your firearms to the highest possible degree. And so something like swapping out the trigger group, it's very simple. So that's the first thing. Just the ease of swapping it out kind of makes it something that's worth getting into. But furthermore, when you work on a firearm that's a little bit modular and you have the ability to make some of these changes, it's gratifying. Having the ability to make it your own, take it from the original stock condition, gain some momentum, and actually make some changes that takes it from what everybody else has to what maybe just some people or even a completely unique piece to yourself. So in that case, I definitely like that fact. But none of that's worth it if it doesn't help the shootability. Now, I've made a number of changes to this exact firearm. I've used the trigger group in a couple of different configurations. Here you happen to see it more of a pistol grip. I've also had it on more of a hunting style rifle stock. And in both cases, it definitely performed well. Now, when it comes down to it, there's some things that I can't quite explain. I'll get into that in a little bit. But first, let's get into my general impressions. From a simple geometry perspective, the BX is exactly the same as the original factory trigger. It has the same length, it has the same overall look and feel. It actually has the exact same aesthetic. So from that perspective, there's nothing that really changed. So regardless of whether or not I had the original factory trigger in there or now the BX, in that case, the length is going to be exactly the same as I grip it, and of course, depending on my stock. But no matter what I do, it's going to be the same. My finger's going to get in there the same exact way. So nothing in terms of the overall geometry has changed. But what has absolutely changed is the weight. The overall weight of the trigger and how hard it is to pull back. The original trigger, roughly 5 3/4 pounds of pull. Now here, 3 3/4 pounds, which means the BX trigger is 65% of the original, or in other words, a 35% weight reduction. And so the question is, did it tighten up any of my shooting? Did it tighten up any of my groups? Well, I'm not good enough in the first place to honestly be able to make that call, but I do think overall, I am shooting pretty well and very consistently, and it feels really good, and it's actually very crisp and has a nice break. As we look here, getting on the trigger, there's really no wall at all. Right there, I'm literally getting right on it. There is zero wall, and there. So again, is there any wall? I mean, what would you call that? Like a 1/16 of an inch versus the original, which is again pretty much about the same. I mean, not really much wall at all, and then a fairly crisp break. Now, in terms of the weight, it's going to be a little bit deceiving, but you can definitely feel it. It is much lighter. Yeah. So, I mean, when you're shooting a 22 in the first place, there's not a ton in the way of recoil. This thing's not going to be moving on me a lot. So having a real nice light and crisp trigger definitely feels good. I have the ability to get on the target and really fire a bunch of shots fairly quickly. Now, when you look at my overall grouping, pretty good. This is a couple different rounds, and at that point, it's not incredibly tight, but at the same time, a 2-inch by 2-inch square to me is as good as I'm ever going to need to be. So that's as good as I could possibly ask for in terms of accuracy. And at this point, my ability to shoot about as quick as I can and keeping it on the target that tight. Now, there are a couple funny things that came up, and I said I'd talk about it in a little bit. So let's take a look right here. You can see already at this point, this thing is fully unloaded. It is not in the racked position here. So here you can see safety is not on. So right now it's live. You can see the safety kind of gets stuck. And as you look at this again, you can clearly see the red line. And as I go to push this, it only goes part way. But now when I slide the bolt, it now drops in. So there's something in there creating a little bit of a restriction. And I think it's because I changed out the auto bolt release. So you can see again, we'll do that one more time. Red is dead. This is hot. Pull the trigger. Go to put that safety on. And again, it binds. And then when I pull the charging handle, it now allows it to pop into place. So there's something going on at this point. I feel as though for me to diagnose this, I definitely need to take this apart. So I'm going to take this apart and clean it really, really well. All right, so now with my trigger group fully cleaned up, I am also going to take the time while I'm at it to fully clean out my receiver. That's going to be important. I don't want to put this nice clean trigger group back into my rifle without fully cleaning everything. So it's just going to take me a little bit longer, but then at that point, everything's going to be ready to go. And so now with my BX trigger group fully disassembled, cleaned, inspected, relubricated, put together the way I need at this point, I think everything's going to be hopefully right where I need it. Now, again, that just goes into showing you maintaining your firearms is absolutely paramount. Now, is there a little bit of a tolerance issue in here? I don't know. Is this a sort of user error thing? Let's find out. So here at this point, all is normal. Now let's try my lock. It does the same thing. So I wonder if this is struggling with my bolt release. And it seems like that might be the case. So where I swapped out my bolt release, this just seems like it's not exactly happy with it. I don't like that. So I might have to go back to my factory bolt release. Now, in theory, let's see if I put the lock on, it's not going to go. But the problem is I just can't set the lock on. Yeah, it seems to be working. So there's a funny tolerance thing going on, but at least at this point I was able to take that BX trigger fully apart and really see what was going on. So generally speaking, very good. And so all in all, final impressions, is going with the BX trigger even worth it? I'd say it is, for a few reasons. First and foremost, as I mentioned, it's fairly simple to do, and it's reasonably affordable. It's not all that expensive. And then on top of that, well, you technically have two trigger groups. So at that point, if you need to take one down for service and you just want to swap it out real quick, take one down, put it aside, get to it and clean it when you really need to. The third thing is it does lighten up a little bit on the overall weight and that sort of, spring tension. So it's a little bit lighter, a little bit crisper, the ability to kind of, maybe rattle a little bit faster without sort of pulling and yanking on your actual shot. Hard to say, I'm not the best judge, but overall I'd say this was definitely a success. And so if you like this content, do me a favor, take a look at my Outer Limitless channel, which is more on the hiking, camping, and backpacking genre. On that channel, I cover everything from sleep systems, shelter systems, knives, axes, backpacks, flashlights, you name it. That's my Outer Limitless YouTube channel. And so, all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.